Hey guys, it's May 29th, Friday. Thought I'd do something a little bit different and talk a little bit about these smooth tools that I find, and a little bit about the culture of the people that made these tools. I actually live basically on an old Cherokee site that was occupied from around the 1600s up to the late 1800s. But I find these smooth tools on a different site, about 3 miles from here, on a creek or a large creek, I'd say, or even a small river. Um, and They were a splinter group of the Mississippian culture, and they were here from probably the 2000 BC up to around 1400 or so. And after that point in time, the Cherokee and the Creek started filtering into this area. But their culture's kind of disintegrated. There's a lot of speculation as to why. They think famine and disease and probably some weather events that caused a big reduction in their population probably occurred, but they're not really sure. But they vacated this area probably in around 1400 period. But anyway, I thought I would kind of give you an idea of where they started off with making a lot of these smooth tools. And like a lot of tools, they start off with this hammerstone. But what they would do is they would go out and they would find a stone that would be real similar in shape to what their final tool, they wanted their final tool to look like. But they would use these hammerstones here to kind of work them down in what they call a preform. And so they would just start striking the edges of that stone and just keep working it into a very rough phase or a rough state of their final product. And they would do that with these hammerstones, and you can see how these are worn on the edges, and that's from striking these stones and working them into a preform state. That's kind of a biscuit head, what I call a biscuit head type, or a biscuit hammerstone there. It's made of quartzite. You'll see them like that, and you'll see them oval like this. This is a quartz one here. So those are the two common hammerstones that you'll normally find up here for making preforms. Then you get over to the preforms. So these are some preforms here. They're very rough, kind of just knocked into a shape close to what their final product is going to be. Really rough. But this one has still really large pecking marks on it, and they usually don't finish them up that way. So these are all in various states of being finished or completed. But after they do use the hammerstone, then they would move into the pecking and chipping process. And these are the tools that they use for that. And these are just small stones, and they're usually very hard stones. And they would just put these in their fingers and just further work those preforms down more and more into their final form that they want it to be. But these are some nice examples of pecking stones here. That one's kind of an icicle shaped one there. They just put them in their fingers like that and just continue to peck on those preforms and get them more and more into the final shape. And once they are finished with the pecking and chipping process, then they would move into what I call is the polishing process. And this is an example of some of the polishing stones that I have. There's just tons of them in the creek. Here's a whole bucket full here. And I leave most of them when I see them, unless they're just really good examples. And these are some pretty good examples here. This was probably the most important process that in the whole tool making process is this polishing. They had to hold these tools for long periods of time, and they needed to be very comfortable in the hand, so they probably spent more time doing this than anything else. They would take these tools down to the creeks and rivers, and they would also use sand to help with the polishing process. wet sand, and that would also help smooth the stones down, the tools down. And then they would hopefully end up with something like this, a finished product. These are all finished tools here. And you can see how finely polished they are. This is actually a grinding stone here, but it's highly polished. And they use this for grinding grains. That's one of my better examples. And this is the polishing side here, or the grinding side, excuse me, not the polishing side, because that's not a polishing stone. So they grind those grains and nuts into a powder, and then make a tortilla out of it. This is like some type of a hammer, highly polished. Some of the places here that have been pecked and worked are not completely polished off, but for the most part, this stone is really been finished out pretty nice. And here's another tool, and I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it's the same here as it is here, so it's pretty nice, pretty neat tool, highly polished. My guess on this tool is a seed planter. They would just use it to dig the soil and dig a little small hole about an inch deep or so and put seeds in, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's anyway, pretty neat looking stone, unusual. But that would be the final product here, and that's the way they should look. And these weren't discarded tools here; these were used, and that's the way they wanted them to look when they got done with their process. So, you guys out there that kind of have a little bit of a hard time wrapping your head around anything doesn't have napped edges or pressure flaked edges, and it not being a tool. Just depending on the culture, depending on the materials available, it depended on the type of the way they lived, the type of food they ate. And again, the Mississippian culture here was almost 100% agrarian. They ate very little meat. So anyway, that's why these tools are the way they are. They were all handheld, and they needed to be smoothed off edges. So hopefully you learned a little something about the culture up here, the Mississippian culture up here, and how they made their tools. I was going to show you also, I forgot that you can see on these tools that they were starting the polishing process on these tools. And, for whatever reason they abandoned these tools. They either lost them or they gave up on them. That would have been the striking edge of this tool here, and they even polished that, but you can see where they're polished. So they started the process on these, and for whatever reason never completed it, and started polishing in here a little bit on that. This tool never was polished. For whatever reason, they just gave up on it. I don't know why. Like I say, could have been lost. This one here is also polished along the edges, so they were starting the process on this tool too. So anyway, I thought I would show you that. Anyway, thought you guys would be interested in this. Hope so. And I hope you're doing well, and try to get back in the creek and get some more things for you guys to look at. Appreciate you watching my channel.